Yes. Okay. 7. Yeah. Okay. We settled. We settled. Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to the House, GCIS, for the post-cabinet briefing that will be led by the Minister in the Presidency. My name is William Maloy. We are going to be joined by Thabo and Nobuhle on sign language. Minister, we invite you to take us through the post-cabinet briefing statement. Good morning. This is the statement of the cabinet meeting that took place on Wednesday, the 1st of July, 2026. On issues in the environment, the comprehensive approach to managing migration in South Africa. Cabinet extended its appreciation to South Africans who participated in peaceful protests against unregulated migration and commended the National Joint Operations and Intelligence Structure, commonly known as NOIDJOINT, for enforcing peaceful protests on the 30th of June 2026. The NOIDJOINTs have briefed on the details of incidences, and therefore Cabinet will not repeat those details. Cabinet also commended the work of the Interministerial Task Team under the chairship of Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Ms. Mamoloko Kubai, for the sterling work in the implementation of the comprehensive approach to managing migration as announced by the President on the 7th of June 2026. Cabinet received an update on the implementation of the 5 pillars of the comprehensive approach, which progress includes under the law enforcement pillar, increased labor inspections at companies suspected of employing undocumented foreign nationals under the guidance of the Deputy Ministers of Employment and Labor, Mr. Jomo Sibia, Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. Njabulo Nzuza, and Deputy Minister of Police, Dr. Polly Bushiel. Ensuring orderly and lawful deportations with the re-establishment of Immigration Specialized Court in Durban that were to process deportations that were being facilitated at Sherwood in Durban, the Immigration Court at the ORTI, OR Tambo International Airport, sorry for the abbreviation, ORTI, that's what we call it, and the reactivation of the court at the Lindela Repatriation Center in Krugersdorp. Also, the progress includes the swift response to support repatriation initiatives, and we must note, it's repatriation initiatives of home countries to ensure coordinated and dignified repatriation. This has resulted in the IMC swiftly setting up a temporary repatriation center in Musina for the efficient facilitation under conditions that are dignified and humane. In this regard, Cabinet extended its appreciations to non-profit organizations who are continuing to support the work of government in providing food and other supplies. Both they did that in Durban and also now they are with us in Musini. Also, Cabinet appreciated that the Border Management Authority continues to intercept irregular immigrants attempting to enter the country lawfully, and those comprise undocumented immigrants and also undesirable persons. And there are other people who have been refused to enter the country due to non-compliant travel documentation, and the work of the BMA continues. As of these are the details provided by Ned Jones. Ned Jones has provided in his briefing details around the cases that have been opened that are related to criminal activities since the protest or against unregular immigration, including the arrests that have been made and the cases that are before the court. And we are confident that Ned Jones will speedily resolve the cases that are outstanding and make sure that all people who are responsible for criminal acts are brought to book. On Thursday, the 2nd of July 2026, some of the members of the IMC conducted an inspection in loco on the Limpopo-Zimbabwe border to appreciate the scope of work for the IMC workstream on border infrastructure improvements. So as we now continue with the law enforcement operations for neighbor inspections and other related matters, we are now also hyping up the work of the second stream, which is the border infrastructure improvement, and with the other streams of policy and legislative gaps and alignments are being addressed as well. Bafana stellar performance at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Cabinet joined the nation in congratulating Bafana on their stellar performance at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which saw the team progressing to the round of 32 for the first time since South Africa's 1998 World Cup debut. Bafana also displayed impressive football against Canada in the round of 32, where they had breakingly lost to a stoppage time goal. Our nation is extremely proud of our boys who showed that they could go toe-to-toe with the best on the global stage. And you should know that now majority of our Bafana stars are now transferring to teams in Europe, showing that we are the best amongst the best. And we thank you, South Africans, for your hearty welcome to our boys. No DNA, just RSA. On the economy, South Africa records significant improvement in global competitiveness ranking. Cabinet welcomes South Africa's significant improvement in global competitiveness as reflected in the 2026 World Cup Competitiveness Yearbook, which ranks as 54th compared to 64th in 2025. The report was released in June 2026 by the Institute for Management Development, IMD, in partnership with the Productivity SA, and saw South Africa improving by 10 places from its previous ranking. The improved ranking is boosted by progress in government efficiency, growing business confidence, and enhanced infrastructure management, underscoring the impact of ongoing reforms to strengthen economic performance and governance. South Africa Infrastructure Summit reinforces the country's public investment drive. Cabinet commended the successful hosting of the South Africa Infrastructure Summit and Expo from the 9th to the 11th of June 2026 at the Gallagher Convention Center in Johannesburg, which provided an important platform to advance partnerships, mobilize investment, and accelerate the implementation of strategic infrastructure projects. Discussions focused on expanding public-private partnerships, improving logistics networks, and strengthening transport, water, and digital infrastructure to support economic growth and development. These infrastructure initiatives give effect to the commitments announced by President Ramaphosa in the 2026 State of the Nation Address, which outlined an ambitious program of infrastructure-led growth with more than 1 trillion in public infrastructure over the medium term. On international relations, the SACU Summit under the reimagined SACU deepening regional integration. Cabinet commended the success of the 9th Southern African Customs Union Summit. We must indicate SACU is one of the longest existing customs union in the world, over 100 years. The summit for head of states or government on the 26th of June 2026. A major outcome of the summit, and in line with the reimagined SACU approach, member states reaffirmed their commitment to SACU as an engine to drive regional economic integration, industrial and economic diversification, expanded intra-regional trade and investment, policy harmonization, and sustainable economic development. Industrialization remains at the center of SACU's developmental agenda. Maintaining strategic relations with China, Deputy President Paul Mashatile concluded a successful working visit to China from the 20th to the 26th of June 2026, aimed at further strengthening economic relations and expanding opportunities for investment and industrial cooperation. During the visit, he also held bilateral meetings with His Excellency Mr. Hang Zheng, the Vice President of the People's Republic of China, to discuss matters of mutual interest and further strengthen bilateral economic ties. During the visit, Deputy President Mashatile participated in the 4th China International Supply Chain Expo, where he reinforced South Africa's position as a gateway to Sub-Saharan Africa for trade, investment, and industrial cooperation. The strengthened partnership is expected to attract increased investment, expanded opportunities for local businesses, and support inclusive economic growth that create jobs. Cabinet decisions. The draft strategic petroleum stocks policy. Cabinet approved the publication of the draft strategic petroleum stocks policy for public comment. The policy aims to strengthen South Africa's energy security and minimize the economic impact of supply shock. It follows a comprehensive study commissioned by the government in 2024 on the country's strategic petroleum stocks, which identified areas requiring attention, including the need to strengthen stockholding arrangements and increase domestic refining capacity. The policy proposes a mixed stockholding model under which the South African National Petroleum Company will maintain strategic reserves equivalent to 60 days of net imports for both crude oil and refined petroleum products, with a phased increase to 90 days over the long term. The policy will contribute to safeguarding national energy security, improving resilience against global supply shocks, and supporting sustainable economic growth. Integrated Social Facilitation Framework. Cabinet approved the Integrated Social Facilitation Framework as the binding national policy instrument to standardize and institutionalize community engagement in infrastructure delivery across all spheres of government, state-owned entities, and infrastructure development stakeholders. The framework is intended to address community protest, project disruptions, vandalism, delays, and security risks by promoting structured community participation throughout the infrastructure project lifecycle, thereby strengthening public trust, social cohesion, and protection of infrastructure investment. The Integrated Social Facilitation Framework introduces a professionalized and coordinated approach to social facilitation, including accreditation of social facilitators, clearer governance arrangements, stronger monitoring and evaluation, and a risk-based approach to managing community-related risks. Ministerial Working Group on Science, Technology, Innovation Funding Report. Cabinet approved the release of the Science, Technology, and Innovation Funding Report for public comment. The report emphasizes the need for South Africa to avoid over-reliance on foreign funding and to build local funding capacity to mitigate threats posed to the country's research programs in order to safeguard South Africa's scientific sovereignty. Ratification of the Southern African Development Community, a protocol on industry. Cabinet approved the submission of the SADC protocol on industry to Parliament for ratification. The protocol is a legally binding regional agreement aimed at developing a diversified, innovating, and globally competitive industrial base across Southern Africa. Its objective is to promote sustainable and inclusive economic growth. South Africa's ratification of the protocol will contribute to bringing it to force and effect as we continue to focus on regional economic and industrial development and promote a transition from the export of raw materials to the export of high-valued manufactured products. Ratification of the agreement on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. Cabinet approved the submission of the agreement on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction agreement to Parliament for ratification, also known as the High Seas Treaty. The agreement is a legally binding United Nations instrument designed to promote the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity in international waters. South Africa played an active role in negotiating the agreement under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. The agreement is expected to strengthen global ocean governance by enhancing international cooperation in the protection and sustainable management of marine resources in international law. Bills. The first bill is the National Environmental Management Laws Amendment Bill 2026. Cabinet approved the publication of the National Environmental Management Laws Amendment Bill 2026 for public comment. The bill seeks to amend the National Environmental Management Act of 1998, Act number 107, to strengthen environmental compliance and enforcement by empowering environmental inspectors to issue compliance notices and enable municipalities to issue directives for environmental violations. The bill also introduces an administrative penalty system into South Africa's national environmental legislation. This will complement existing criminal sanctions by providing an alternative to criminal prosecution for less serious environmental contraventions, enabling more efficient enforcement while avoiding the delays and reputational risks associated with criminal proceedings. Electronic Deeds Registration and Recordal Systems Amendment Bill. Cabinet approved the submission of the Electronic Deeds Registration and Recordal Systems Amendment Bill to Parliament. The bill seeks to amend the Electronic Deeds Registration Act number 19 of 2019, the Deeds Registration Act number 47 of 1937, and the Sectional Titles Act number 95 of 1986 to modernize the legislative framework governing deeds registration and recordal systems. The bill advances the objective of an inclusive economy and enhanced security of land tenure. The proposed amendments are largely technical in nature and are intended to strengthen the security of title and improve the administration of land and property rights for the benefit of landowners and right holders. Updates to Cabinet. The 2026-2027 National Intelligence Estimate, National Intelligence Priorities, and National Intelligence Estimate Implementation Plan. Cabinet was briefed about the National Security Council approved 2026-27 National Intelligence Estimates, National Intelligence Priorities, and it considered the National Intelligence Estimates Implementation Plan. Cabinet noted that the national intelligence structures are continuing to make inroads in the implementation of national intelligence estimates. On priorities which are beyond the mandates of the national intelligence structures, the NIE implementation plan continues to be strengthened, and in those regards, part of the implementation plans that are outside the mandate of the national intelligence structures, which the NIE emphasizes, is strengthened labor inspection to ensure compliance with South Africa's labor law. 2, strict regulations of local economies to ensure participation and ownership in favor of citizens in line with Section 22 of the Constitution, with emphasis on the regulations of the spaza shop other small and informal businesses to ensure meaningful ownership and participation by citizens. 3, the energy self-sufficiency for energy and food security in light of South Africa's resource endowments. And 4 is the focus on climate change and the large El Nino that is due to affect us and the mitigation plans that are required thereto. In due course, and on the advice of the National Intelligence Structures, the Minister in the Presidency will release the 2020-2021 National Intelligence Estimates and Priorities. You will recall we always release, we will do a delayed release of the National Intelligence Estimates and Priorities. So we do not release the current ones, we release the previous period. On the Public Service Commission advisory note on the participation of public servants in political party study groups and other related engagement, Cabinet has noted that the Public Service Commission has formulated the advisory note without soliciting views from other parties that use the study group mechanism to prepare for portfolio committees, and as the Public Service Commission to consult more widely. The South African dispensation is based on proportional representation system of political parties. As such, Parliament is organized through party caucuses. Party caucuses then organize themselves in a manner for its efficient functioning, and other parties are organized through study groups, others through working groups, and others through individual consultation. The assumption of the advisory note is that senior officials participate in study groups through the instruction of their ministers or deputy ministers, and it disregards the invitations to study groups, to working groups, and other engagements by members of various political parties in order to empower members of parliament to exercise efficient oversight. Cabinet has agreed to take the work through the participation in study groups, working groups, and other related mechanisms to the clearinghouse mechanism to work on guidelines for the participation of senior officials in study groups and related mechanisms of political parties represented in Parliament. And the senior officials are invited, in terms of Cabinet, who are invited should participate in study groups to provide technical information to empower MPs to improve oversight and accountability and to hold the executive to account. And this is not limited to parties that are in the GNU. This support must also be extended to parties that are in Parliament, because officials hold the technical capability and they can explain the technical terms to MPs. Excuse me. State-owned enterprises reforms. Cabinet received a progress report on the implementation of reforms aimed at strengthening state-owned enterprises to ensure that they are fit for purpose. Ongoing progress in driving implementation of the SOE reform program includes key initiatives that focus on strengthening governance, enhancing sustainability, and increasing accountability across SOCs. A key initiative of the National State Enterprise Bill, which provides for the establishment of a centralized entity to coordinate SOC reforms, standardized governance practices, and remuneration guidelines, and support improved performance across the SOC portfolio. Through the SOC performance monitoring framework, performance of 72 Schedule 2, Schedule 3A, and Schedule 3B entities were assessed during the 2026 financial year. The assessment identified several governance challenges requiring targeted interventions. The framework remains a critical instrument for strengthening oversight, improving governance, and enhancing organizational performance across state-owned enterprises through the assessment of planning, reporting, and performance management processes. Complementing these reforms is the process of rationalization and repositioning of the SOCs, building on the work of the Presidential State-Owned Enterprises Council, which submitted its recommendation to the President in April 2024. Project on access to education support and service to children and young people with disabilities in South Africa. Cabinet noted 2 reports developed by the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities, which assess the gap between South Africa's inclusive education policies and the lived realities of children and young people with disabilities. Conducted between Between October 2022 and March 2024, the project comprised evaluating existing education support services and identified practical interventions to improve learning and teaching outcomes. Cabinet reaffirmed South Africa's commitment to building a single inclusive education system that caters for the needs of children and young people with disabilities. Key recommendations include reforming education legislation or promulgating regulations in accordance with South Africa Schools Act to enforce the right to equal, equitable, and quality education for children and young people with disability. The reports also recommend that higher education institutions introduce compulsory, inclusive, and special needs education courses for students training to become teachers. The two reports are available at the website of the Department of Women, Youth, and People with Disability, dwypd.gov.za. Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations. Cabinet received and considered Parliament's approved annual update on the implementation of the TRC recommendations in June 2003. Parliament approved the granting of reparations to TRC identified victims. These include final ones of reparation, a payment of 30,000, medical benefits, and other forms of social assistance, symbols and monuments, and community rehabilitation as part of the healing the wounds of the past. Cabinet noted progress in the implementation of these measures, including the promulgation of the regulations by the President governing once-off individual reparations, exhumation, reburial, and symbolic burial of victims, basic education assistance, higher education and training assistance, and housing assistance. The outstanding draft regulations relating to the health and community rehabilitation are at various stages of finalization. In addition, 17,455 of the 21,676 TRC identified victims who applied for once-off individual reparations received their 30,000 grant. The total amount paid for the once-off individual reparation is nearly 500 million. To ensure that all eligible beneficiaries receive the support due to them, on June 2026, a general notice was published in the Government Gazette calling for the TRC identified victims or their next of kin who have not yet applied for reparations to come forward and claim their once-off reparations of 30,000 rands. On the progress with the implementation of the action plan on the President's response to the State Capture Commission, Cabinet welcomed the continued progress in implementing the President's response to the State Capture Commission recommendations, with 62% of the 60 actions, which means 37 actions, are completed or substantially completed, with 18% on track and 20% delayed but progressing. Notable achievements in the implementing the implementation plan on the state of capture recommendation includes the recovery of approximately 17.1 billion in assets linked to the state of capture, the finalization of 6 criminal matters resulting in guilty verdicts, the enactment of key legislative reforms, and ongoing measures to strengthen anti-corruption, procurement governance, and accountability systems. While significant progress has been made in advancing reforms relating to the public sector professionalization, whistleblower protection, state-owned entity governance, procurement oversight, and institutional integrity, several complex structural reforms remain under development and required sustained attention, and which Cabinet continues to give to ensure the full implementation of the Commission's recommendations. On appointments, all appointments are subject to verification of qualifications and related security clearances. The first appointment is the appointment of the concurrence to the appointment of Dr. Tshepo Mukoka as the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Central Energy Fund, Ms. Lindokuhle Nzoyi as the Chief Executive Officer of Amatole Water, Dr. Michael Masiapata as Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, which is the extension of term of office, Dr. Musa Furumele as the South African Chief Representative to the Lesotho Highlands Water Commission, and Ms. Nelly Dineondumo as an alternative representative thereof. Appointment of the chairperson and a member of the board of the National Lotteries Commission, with the appointment of Mr. Tembinkosi Bonakele as the chairperson and Ms. Mpho Sonia Mosing as a member. Appointment of the board members of the Mine Health and Safety Council, which include Mr. David Msiza as the chairperson, Mr. Olile Mbonambi, deputy, who's the representative of the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Dr. Dipalisa Mukoboto from the DMPR as well, Mr. Mtokozisi A. Zondi, DMPR, Mr. Ndibuzanyi Mawasane, a DMPR, Ms. Naledi Zipane from the National Union of Mine Workers, Ms. Melanie Roy from the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, Mr. Nico Royan from UASA, Mr. John Ditoit Boning from Solidarity, Mr. Johannes Tabang Sikake from AMPU, Mr. Dushendra Naidu, Minerals Council of South Africa, Dr. Mumudao, Vandat Resources, Mr. T.W. Sipetla from Harmony Gold, Mr. Ronald Mafuko, Overlooked Group, and Ms. Letitia van der Berg, ASA Pass, Ms. Constance Kekana, alternate member, Mr. Tabong Benya, alternate member, Mr. Masubule Lenaki, alternate member of NUM, Mr. Enoch Manyoni, alternate member of NUMSA, Mr. Johnny White, alternate member of UASA, Mr. Jacobus Johannes Devet Blow, alternate member of Solidarity, Mr. D. Gabriel Ngosi, alternate member of AMPU, Dr. Tutula Balfo, alternate member of Mineral Council of South Africa, Mr. Modise Ronald Mutlamme, alternate member of Harmony Gold, and Dr. Kelvin Naidu, alternate member of Valetra Platinum. Upcoming events, the Mandela Month. South Africa will, in this month of July, commemorate Mandela Month under the theme, "It's still in our hands to combat poverty and inequity." Cabinet calls on all South Africans to dedicate their time and efforts during Mandela Month and on Nelson Mandela International Day on the 18th of July, 2026, to help build a South Africa that works for South Africans. National Science Month. July marks National Science Month, which will be launched on 4 July 2026 at the Vaal University of Technology, Southern Gauteng Science and Technology Park in Sebokeng, under the theme, Science, Technology and Innovation are for everyone. The month-long science celebration aims to build a science-literate society that can form independent opinions on science, technology, and innovation. It seeks to promote a community with confidence in science, scientists, and scientific institutions. On condolences, Cabinet expressed condolences to the friends and families of the South African jazz icon, Abdullah Ibrahim, who was one of the most influential figures in global jazz, who had a remarkable career spanning more than 7 decades. He will be remembered as one of the most celebrated musicians and cultural ambassadors, but he was a freedom fighter, and his contribution to the freedom of this country remains remarkable. He is popularly known for his song, Money Back, and others. We also wish to extend our condolences to the 3 victims from two Mozambique nationals and 1 Malawi national who were victims of the attacks on foreign nationals towards the build-up of the 30 June protest. And we have committed no joints to make sure that no stone is left unturned until those who are responsible for their murder are arrested and the justice is served. There is no one who has a right to murder and kill anyone in South Africa, whether they are South African or not South African, whether they are documented or not documented. The right to life is a universal right and is guaranteed. Congratulations. Cabinet extended its congratulations and well wishes to the Minister of Employment, another sprinter, Bradley Nkwana, for joining a very exclusive club by becoming the 12th South African to break the 10-second barrier over 100 meters. I told you, we are only subbing, we are sub 10 in South Africa. George Bush and Haider Stein for winning the 2026 men's and women's Comrades Marathon, respectively. Bush completed the up run in a historic record-breaking time of 5 hours, 15 minutes, and 56 seconds, while Stein secured a fifth title with an up run record of 5 hours, 44 minutes, and 53 seconds, showing that the difference between men and women in sport has become very negligible, and therefore the compensation must be equal across all sports. And we want to continue to commend our national teams, our sportsmen and women, for continuing to build and bring this nation together, making sure they remind us what we are. We are South Africans, first and foremost, black and white. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the statement. We will then move into question times. We'll start first in the media center, and later on we'll go for questions that have been sent online. The drill is the same. You'll press the red knob when it's red there, and then you introduce yourself, and then we'll take the questions. I see two hands thus far, so I'll start with the one on the left, and then the second.
First question, Minister. We saw former President Jacob Zuma in India with fugitives who ran away from this country, particularly Mr. A.J. Gupta. We saw one of the employees of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, alongside the former president, beating a fugitive of the country. What is the government's response of this heinous act by this DECO official who went to meet with a fugitive who's ran away and stolen billions from this country, even with former President Jacob Zuma and Mr. Mswanele? What is the government's view in this response? What response have you received from the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ronald Lamula, being down with the DG on this particular act? Will there be any action taken against this particular DECO employee who's went and seen the fugitive of the country with former President Zuma? Then when it comes to the travel of these former heads of state, does the government not track where they are going and who they are meeting? Particularly noting that former President Zuma, as a former head of state, was at the helm when these particular brothers signed millions, if not billions, from the state, whom today he says are his friends, to come back and run this country. With their blessings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mangoba from ENC. I think somebody has captured the question that I wanted to ask. I just wanted to, also find out if there will be any consequences or any sanctions against the South African Commissioner to India regarding this visit. And, also the messaging that this sends to South Africans. Are you concerned about the messaging that this is sending to South Africa, given that the Guptas are fugitives of the law?
Thank you very much. I don't see any other question in the house or any indication. Minister, those are the two questions that we have. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. You recall that South Africa has applied for mutual assistance to bring the fugitive Gupta brothers back into the country. Therefore, it's a level of disgrace that our own employee, the representative of the government of South Africa, hobnobs with the criminals instead of doing his work of to ensure that the fugitives are brought back into South Africa so that they can face their criminal fate. It is for that reason that the Minister of International Relations and Cooperations, Minister Lamula, has not only requested for a report from the official, but has indicated that drastic steps will be taken to make sure that nobody undermines the laws of this country whilst representing this country. In terms of whether we track, you are aware that there are privileges extended to former state presidents, but government is entitled to review such privileges if they are abused to undermine the laws of this republic. This is not the first instance in relation to this particular state president that he undermines not only the foreign policy of the country, but also the laws of the country when he's supported by the country. But we do not have the itineraries of the former state presidents when they travel. Currently, the privileges gives us a request to fund their traveling and whatever, and that we are reviewing those issues. We also are very clear that the messaging is very wrong, both from Mr. Ambassador Shukla on his conduct, because he's directly undermining the criminal justice system of this country, and showing a middle finger to South Africans who paying his salary instead of him performing his task as required by the laws of this country. So we'll await the report from the Minister of DECO and to make sure that necessary steps are taken against Ambassador Shukla. And similarly, it's also very disturbing that a former state president can openly and unapologetically show the middle finger to South Africans. We have lost a lot of money through the Gupta brothers' shenanigans in our country, and continues to show a middle finger and claims that he wants to run this country again. It shows the type of person he is, and it's for South Africans to judge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. May I then request that we get the online questions? Vanessa.
So you saw a politics reporter from News 24. The minister mentions that the cabinet has identified some gaps in the immigration policy, and now it seeks to plug them. What are those gaps? Why were they not plugged before the crisis? How do you respond to criticism that the government has contributed significantly to this crisis through failure to implement its own laws? How many foreign nationals have been deported? Arthur from Hot FM in Cape Town. Can you please confirm the deployment of soldiers to assist in managing anti-illegal foreigner protests? Could you please elaborate on the role of the SANDF in this deployment, including its mandate, responsibilities, and the expected duration of the operation? Does government have a timeline to conclude the repatriation of all migrants who are being processed in Musina? That's all we have now.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure, Vanessa, if you can check the question also from Brony Roberts, AFP.
Bronwyn, AFP, will the government reimburse foreign nationals for their losses and property left behind because they had to leave South Africa so quickly, as has been demanded by Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Minister. I think these were the only questions that we had online. Then Minister then can also take us to the conclusion of the briefing.
May I have the repeat of the very first question?
The first question was from Soyiso Malidi, a politics reporter. The minister mentions that the cabinet has identified some gaps in the immigration policy. What are those gaps? Why were they not plugged before the crisis? How do you respond to criticism that the government has contributed significantly to this crisis? Failure to implement its own laws. So many foreign nationals have been deported.
Thank you. It's very interesting that a politics reporter does not know what's happening in politics. South Africa amended the white paper on immigration, refugee, and asylum seekers in 2023. And then we undertook